The first time I ever really started thinking about airships was back in Final Fantasy era of Nintendo back in the 80s when I first played that game and was blown away by the thought of an airship and how it could work, and just with ease that you could freely run around in the game and fly around and land anywhere and do anything and see castles, fly over castles, fly just everywhere around waterfalls. Take a look. You could go slow, you could go fast, all this stuff, and was always fascinated by airships. And I, at one point in my life, envisioned playing a concert with my band on an airship like this, an open thing like this with a huge crowd at sunset. Just how amazing it would be. I always wondered. Maybe I'll get to live it someday. I hope, if we can resurrect airships. But either way, one of you all out there, I love when you all contact me and send me some stuff, but one of you tuned me into this, Tartaria Info. It's a Russian site that had an amazing amount of airship information on it. And so I'm going to show you the page here. You can check it out. I'll put the link below, and then I'll show you some other pictures and photos of airships throughout time. But wow, take a look at some of this, and some of these concepts that are brought up in this particular article on airships are just awesome and totally beyond the airship. And I'm glad to see that Russia is starting to dig deeper into the history of their land, because something is fishy and something smells rotten with the amount of stuff that's been hidden and eviscerated from time. So this is a very interesting collection, and I highlighted some certain pages that I wanted to read for you all, some different parts. So we're going to start with this. You can take a look at this whole article, but I'll read parts of it and that I thought were important and kind of talk about it. This section said, an airship, from French dirigible controlled, or a controlled balloon, a type of aircraft, a balloon equipped with a power plant and capable of moving in a given direction at a considerable speed over a wide range of altitudes. The hull of the airship is a body of a conveniently streamlined shape with a volume of 2,000 to 200,000 M3, equipped with stabilizers, vertical and horizontal rudders as part of an attitude control system that provides the ability to move in any direction regardless of the direction of airflow. Airships are equipped with powerful motors, usually reciprocating, that drive propellers to create thrust. According to the hull design, airships are divided into three types: non-rigid, soft, rigid, and semi-rigid. So the article goes on to talk about all of the different uses of airships, whether they're for travel, luxury travel, transport, or especially blowing things up and destroying things and showing complete dominance. And also the possibility that these were created with kind of a technology that we don't really know today, some kind of ether gathering technology that allowed them to kind of sustain themselves, to be totally afloat. And they are kind of theorizing all these different things regarding the air inside it as well. And was it helium, or was it something else combined with some other things? And look at this picture. I love that. The tap and the people getting on in these revolving cylinders that are all over the place, found in many different places and most likely bombed. They look like altars. They look like lighthouses. I wonder if lighthouses were converted at one point or used at one point for airships all over the world. How interesting is that? And they bring up so many different kinds of concepts in this article. You really have to take a look at it to believe it. All about the outsides, whether they were bulletproof, whether they were just, protective of everything, protective against anything if you crash into a mountain or something. But they also found all these different balls with them, these metallic balls that they're not sure about. They kind of disguise them as weapons, but you'll see people are lying on them. So many different things. They also stated in this article that the Zeppelins were known to be able to be traveling around the entire world and only making 2 to 3 stops, or at least this part of our plane, and making 2 to 3 stops to refuel. So whatever it was using was a pretty amazingly efficient system. And they were talking about potentially star forts that were declared as the towns where these Zeppelins were made. There were certain different factories in different particular places of Germany and Russia that were eventually, definitely mostly around the Crimea again, that were blown up at certain points that were supposedly factories or different areas where they created these things. And this guy goes into very amazing depth about the star forts and where they are now and how some of them are underwater. This part was pretty interesting where it says, I'm not linked up with the images, but this one particular part says the steam-powered airship designed by Henry Gifford, who borrowed these ideas from Meunier more than half a century later, did not make its first flight until September 24th, 1852. The difference between the date of the invention of the balloon, 1783, and the first flight of the airship is due to the lack of engines for aerostatic aircraft. The next technological breakthrough came in 1884, when the first fully controlled free flight was made in the electric-powered French military airship La France by Charles Renard and Arthur Krebs. The length of the airship was 52 meters, the volume was 1,900 meters cubed. In 23 minutes, a distance of 8 kilometers was covered using an 8.5-liter engine. However, these devices were short-lived and extremely fragile. So that's part of the news, and what we got to remember, that everything we hear about the Hindenburg, about all these different things, was designed to completely reshape the thought of airships, according to this article, and according to my thought as well. And this is kind of interesting. It says, according to the version put forward by the American amateur historian Adolf Holling, the Hindenburg was destroyed by a time mine explosion. This mine was installed by technician Erich Spell, German, at the bottom of cylinder number 4. The explosion was supposed to occur after berthing, when all passengers and crew had to leave the airship. But since the Hindenburg made an extra circle, the clockwork worked before they disembarked. Spell himself jumped out of the burning ship, but soon died in the hospital from his burns. The former head of the IV department of the Gestapo, Heinrich Müller, adhered to the same story. And so again, was the Hindenburg, like most people think now, just designed to create tons of fear and to completely end an industry that had been dominant for so long? And it even refers to this article about, like, destroying cities in Russia and talking about just completely obliterating places in Russia, in Tartaria most definitely. And then as World War I comes, talking about how these weren't really, they were supposedly not used, but people say they were. But as time went on, they kind of suggested, maybe they got rid of this technology because it was too easy, almost too easy to destroy things in this manner. And are they still using this way up there somewhere, or somewhere beyond the poles? Who really knows? There is so much just to see in this article, so many different concepts brought up on this entire website. I definitely recommend checking it out. But they even talk about Ferdinand von Zeppelin, which he created these factories for these airships in different parts of the world. I think there was one in Europe and Russia, and then it came to the United States. It says in 1863, Zeppelin came to the United States as a military observer. At the time, there was a quote-unquote civil war between the North and the South. Here, he first had a chance to rise in a balloon. This event influenced his entire life. It was after this that he decided to deal with the problems of aeronautics. Returning to his homeland, he continued his military service, fought in the ranks of the Prussian army during the Prussian, Austrian, and Franco-Prussian Wars. In 1870 to 1871, during the Franco-Prussian War, while serving as a cavalry officer, Zeppelin became famous as a good scout. For his activities, he used balloons, with their help, observing the positions and actions of the enemy. So again, these are the stories that survive, and it is so easy to rewrite history of the past because barely anything survives, and you can easily destroy everything. And there's one town it talks about called Friedrichshafen, where the factories for the manufacture of airships were located, talking about the movement of them, talking about civil wars that were happening at similar times, all the connections between the Russian Empire and Zeppelin, and a lot of these other things that ended up happening in America. Really unbelievable. And almost proposing that some of these wars were guided by a third hand that maybe had a stake and control in the destruction. They even talk about different things like the Sahara and all these different places that we see that are ancient ruins, and the likelihood of that they could have been bombed by Zeppelins using this incredible technology that was just impossible to destroy. And when you connect it with the ether force, and maybe the fact that it might use ether to help shield itself, to help protect itself, to help destroy things, it brings up a whole nother realm of possibilities. And every time that this world, someone creates something for transport, they definitely use it for destruction as well. So they were claiming that these balls here were bombs in stories that you tell, but this guy's sleeping on them? A little bit suspect. Would you ever sleep on a ball? A lot of people are suggesting there's some kind of ethereal device, some kind of connection with them in the cylinders that kept things in motion, kept everything, and just the ability to have this massive machinery, these tons of people in a balloon. You know, there is definitely something clearly figured out here, technological wise, that we can't even fathom right now in this current thing because they've destroyed it. They destroyed it intentionally. They probably didn't want it to be used again. Maybe they wanted to keep them on one of the islands that they erased from Google Earth. They're one of the countries that are gone. They wanted this technology not to exist here because they can make a lot more money with other kinds of war materials. But wow, these are the ancient kind of airships that they talk about in some of the old books from the 1600s and beyond. And were they using these? And what were in these balls right here? And maybe underneath the Zeppelin were a series of different balls, like ethereal balls that helped float, helped gravitate, helped kind of separate or create like a, you know, just like almost like a water-like solution. It turns the air into, or it just kind of uses the air as a water-like system. And it even shows some flags and some coat of arms that depicted things like airships. There's talk about Copenhagen and that being kind of an old spot that was very famous for these usages, and you know, different buildings that these things would tour around, used for maps. It explains a lot of the aerial drawings that we see in many different places. There are so many different things to check out in this article. I can't stress it enough. Just absolutely phenomenal and just sickening as well when you realize what they took from us by getting rid of these things and all the technology surrounding this. And instead we have planes with all these different chances of things happening, and you know, there's so many, they're not as nearly as fun. I can't imagine if the airship technology had not taken a decline and had progressed and kept evolving to the point where we had cruise ships in the air. You know, then it would lead to smaller vehicles utilizing this ethereal technology. It's like we've lost so much by getting erased, by getting reset by these pieces of garbage that control everything for so long and just pin everyone against each other and just eradicate. Like, even if you think about it, like places that are like the Sahara and whatnot that clearly have stuff buried under them because they're just vast deserts that don't seem to belong. There's something odd about them. And either way, regardless of what's buried underneath them, think about it in regards to airships. You could even drop dirt on these things. If you had a way of lifting tons of masses of things, like we do helicopters with water and fires in the West, they could probably lift huge amounts of dirt and just dump them onto different places, cover land, reset cities by just dumping the land on them. These things could have been used to terraform or to basically reshape the entire world if they were, you know, if they didn't just need air and like barely be able to float, which never really made sense. When you think about them having helium in them, they'd bob up and down, they'd be tough to control. There'd be so many different weight imbalances if people were moving around in there. You know, it had to be a technology that we don't really know about. Something was lost, something in this shell that kept it up and kept it like amazingly strong, kept the air from leaking out of it. And the air, it has to be the tightest like boundary of all time to be able to keep air out and not have a leak and not have it start to tear. And it clearly was not flammable the amount of times they were using them. There's this just totally a lie, the Hindenburg nonsense. The motors used were clearly of an intense technology. So much lost, so much stolen, so much robbed from all of us. These people, just by leading us astray and lying about so much of our past, we lose so much of our present. We're just being held down by this invisible force that doesn't allow us to progress as we should have and as we deserve to. And that's what I hope the Renaissance brings. And whatever, regardless of the term the Renaissance means in the past, I hope we get a just full-blown revival of creativity, thoughts, things that expand the beauty of nature in harmony with humans and earth and the ether and the free energy and the everything, and having a good time again. We all need to basically recover from what has happened and what they did to us for so long. And we deserve the rest of our lives and on everyone on earth to just be happy, dedicated towards peace, dedicated towards advancing the human civilization beyond the poles. Let's discover this airship technology again. Let's go beyond the poles. Let's find all these amazing lost civilizations that we know are out there, probably watching us right now, laughing, watching us from invisible airships, or who knows. But either way, I hope we figure it all out, and I hope we get to ride in an airship one day, because I want nothing more than to play an amazing guitar solo at a sunset with an incredible band playing, hear one, and just be part of a performance in the clouds, sunset, over a vast land, people all in the zone, everyone feeling it, everyone feeling great. I want to one day experience that so badly, and not through a virtual reality headset. I want to experience it real. We need to bring this all back. Hopefully one day we'll discover the people, or they'll rediscover us, come back and say, here, this is what you all were meant to be. This is the stage you all were meant to be at. Enjoy. Have fun. Welcome back to paradise, humanity. That would be nice. Bless you all.